Maharaj ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Om Premanandi. You have a Bhagavad Gita? Somebody read from Bhagavad Gita, but I don't see one.
Yeah, actually,
Om Jnana Timirandasya Ganachana Shavakaya Chakshumilitam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovisam Statikam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuddha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagra Raganatam Itam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Vaishna Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Radhita Shri Vishakam Sa He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jatpate Goveya Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Radha Ramde Radhe Vrindavaneshware Srishanusute Manamani Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Patinanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gaura Bhagavata Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'm going to read from one of the verses I really liked when I was a new devotee, because it's kind of a practical verse on how to practically perform devotional service. It's the second chapter, text number 14. I don't know if anyone can see it or has books. How do they work? Do they know? Does everyone respond, or does everyone get the chant?
up to you.
Up to me. Okay, well, if you know it, you can respond. It's 2:14. Matras pashastu kaunteya.
Matras pashastu kaunteya.
Shitoshna sukha dukkata.
Shitoshna sukha dukkata.
Agama paino nityas.
Agama paino nityas.
Samsitikshasva bharata.
Samsitikshasva bharata.
Matras pashastu kaunteya.
Matras pashastu kaunteya.
Shitoshna sukha dukkata.
Shitoshna sukha dukkata.
Agama paino nityas.
Agama paino nityas.
Samsitikshasva bharata.
Samsitikshasva bharata.
Anyone want to try?
Matra sparshastu kaunteya.
Matra sparshastu kaunteya.
Shitoshna sukha dukkada.
Shitoshna sukha dukkada.
Agama paino nityam.
Agama paino nityas.
Samsitikshasva bharata.
Matras pashastu kaunteya.
Matras pashastu kaunteya. Sensory perception.
Sensory perception.
Two only.
Only.
Kaunteya.
Kaunteya.
O son of Kunti.
O son of Kunti.
Shita.
Shita.
Winter.
Winter.
Ushna.
Ushna.
Summer.
Summer.
Sukha.
Sukha.
Happiness.
Happiness.
Dukkha.
Dukkha.
And pain.
And pain.
Da.
Da.
Giving.
Giving.
Agama.
Agama.
Appearing.
Appearing.
Apayinaha.
Apayinaha.
Disappearing.
Disappearing.
Anityaha.
Anityaha.
Non-permanent.
Non-permanent.
Tan.
Tan.
All of them.
All of them.
Titikshasva.
Titikshasva.
Just try to tolerate.
Just try to tolerate.
Bharata.
Bharata.
O descendant of the Bharati dynasty.
O descendant of Bharati dynasty.
Translation. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O Skyna Bharat, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearances and disappearances of happiness and distress. According to Vedic injunction, one has to take his bath early in the morning, even during the month of Magh, January, February. It is very cold at that time, but in spite of that, a man who abides by the religious principles does not hesitate to take his bath. Similarly, a woman does not hesitate to cook in the kitchen in the months of May and June, the hottest part of the summer season. One has to execute his duty in spite of climatic inconveniences. Similarly, to fight is the religious principle of the Kshatriyas. And although one has to fight with some friend or relative, one should not deviate from his prescribed duty. One has to follow the prescribed rules and regulations of religious principles in order to rise up to the platform of knowledge. Because by knowledge and devotion only can one liberate himself from the clutches of Maya, illusion. The two different names of address given to Arjuna are also significant. To address him as Kaunteya signifies his great blood relations from his mother's side, and to address him as Bharat signifies his greatness from his father's side. From both sides, he is supposed to have a great heritage. A great heritage brings responsibility in the matter of proper discharge of duties. Therefore, he cannot avoid fighting. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O sky Bharat, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So, in the discharge of one's devotional service, there are going to be some difficulties. Also in here it says how one should tolerate happiness. So generally we might think I can tolerate all the happiness you want to give me. Just bring it on. But tolerating it means, at least my understanding, is I do my service. I know what my devotional service is. Sometimes happiness can interfere with devotional service. Once when Krishna was being fanned by one of his devotees, the devotee became so ecstatic. You can imagine Krishna walks in here. Imagine fanning him, how ecstatic he would be. He became so ecstatic, but his ecstasy interfered with his fanning. So he controlled his ecstasy. He controlled his happiness so that he can fan Krishna properly. So sometimes even happiness can interfere with our service. We don't generally have that problem as much as the distress. How the distress might interfere with our service. We have to know what Krishna wants us to do. Certain things we know he wants us to do. He wants us to chant so many rounds a day. In certain things he wants us not to do. So we have to do those things and not do those other things. And devotees, as they make progress, Krishna gives them some personal service to do. At the temple, maybe clean the temple, maybe cook. Maybe if when one actually gets to the point of even second initiation, can do devotional service on the altar, bathing and dressing the deities. I was in class once in Vrindavan, and Srila Prabhupada was giving class, and he was saying that the devotee who bathes Krishna and Balaram, and he is explaining that Krishna and Balaram were made from white marble and black marble, and the devotees who clean the floor, which in this case is the same thing, white and black marble, it's not different. There's no difference in the service. So it doesn't matter what service you're doing. You might think one service is higher than another, but no matter what service you're doing, if you're doing it to please Krishna, then that's all that matters. You get the same benefit. Even with Lord Ramachandra, when there was I heard different things. I heard a squirrel, I heard a spider throwing in some rocks or pebbles into the water to float. And then Hanuman said, move out of my way, because he had these big boulders he's throwing in to make a bridge to Lanka. And Ram told him, no, he's pleasing me just as much as you are. So it's not like how much service we do that's the main thing for pleasing Krishna. It's just having the proper attitude. Even if we don't have the proper attitude, Putana certainly didn't have the proper attitude in her devotional service. It wasn't even devotional service. She wanted to kill Krishna. You can't be much worse than that. Well, you can be worse than that. You can be worse than that when you have no indifference to Krishna. Indifference is worse than loving or hating. Even better to hate Krishna than be indifferent. That's the worst. But Krishna wanted to kill him. Her intentions were really bad. But she offered her breast milk like a mother. So he accepted her as my mother, and she became liberated as his mother after quite a bit of pain. But she did get liberation. So even sometimes our intentions may not even be pure. But still, we are engaged in devotional service and we still benefit. But the purer we are in the sense that I'm doing this for Krishna's pleasure. I'm not doing this for... And then when we have that service, when that service is assigned to us, no matter what happens, I have to take responsibility to do that service. Whether I'm happy or whether I'm distressed. I don't feel good today. I don't feel like doing it. I'm having problems. No, whether I'm having problems or not, that doesn't matter. I still have to do the service. One time, a devotee... Srila Prabhupada sent a devotee, I think it was out to get an eggplant. And he went out and he came back and he said, Srila Prabhupada, I don't know if he called him Swamiji or Srila Prabhupada at the time because it was in the beginning of the movement. He said that I was in Maya the whole time, Srila Prabhupada. And he said, I went and my mind was just giving me so much trouble, just going out, looking at everything. I was so attracted to different things. I was so much in Maya. Prabhupada said, did you get the eggplant? He said, yes. He said, very good. So sometimes our consciousness may not even be so good while we're doing our service, but still we have to tolerate whatever is disturbing us and do our devotional service. So, as I mentioned, tolerating the happiness is easy. Tolerating the distress may be harder, but we still have to tolerate. I mentioned this earlier today because I remembered in the book about Bhakti Siddhanta, Srila Prabhupada's Guru Maharaj, he said that you have to tolerate. He says, even if it becomes intolerable, you should tolerate. which really, I mean, intolerable means you can't tolerate it anymore. He says, still you should tolerate, no matter what it is. And in the same book about Bhakti Siddhanta, it said where he had a sannyasi who fell down. And Bhakti Siddhanta went to, or prayed to Krishna, why did you inspire me to give him sannyas if you knew he was going to fall down? He got upset with Krishna. You inspired me to give this man sannyas if you knew he was going to fall down. Why did you do that? And then he said, I quit. So even we may get so upset like that, I quit. Still, he didn't quit. He just kept doing what his service was. He never quit. So sometimes things may even seem to get that bad, but still, and we may feel that as like a little child, I quit, or whatever a child might say. But we just have to keep going. We can't let anything interfere with our services. That's our responsibility. And the results are up to Krishna. He said, in all your activities and for the results, just depend upon me. Work always under my protection, and in such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. So we have to just try to do the service. We have to try to think of Krishna while we're doing the service. And the results are up to him. He's given us this service. We have to see he's given this to us. And whatever service that is, if he doesn't want us to do it, he's going to have to let us know somehow. Otherwise, we're going to keep doing it. So we have to have that attitude, and that is whether, and it's interesting, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress. In other words, when we're distressed, we generally think, I'm always like this. It's forever. It never ends. But it does end. It's going to end. Just like your happiness ends, your distress also ends. You cannot be always happy, nor can you be always distressed. Material happiness and material distress. You can't be. Even if you want to be distressed, you can't stay distressed. How many people wants to be distressed? Nobody. There was a time I wanted to be distressed. And I'll give it, you might think, oh, this guy's crazy. But I was in the Navy, and I was distressed. I just couldn't stand this stupid Navy. I couldn't stand there was so much of it I just didn't like. And this was in Vietnam, and I was just fried with the whole thing. So because I was distressed, they saw something is wrong, so they sent me to the sick bay, see that physically nothing is wrong with me. Then they sent me to the psychiatrist, and then I thought, I'm going to get out of the Navy. I'll get out on a medical discharge. This is great. But I didn't want to be happy, because if I was happy, I won't get out. But I couldn't help thinking I'm going to get out, and then I was happy, and I didn't want to be, and I stayed in the Navy until my time was up. But that was when I realized I can't even stay sad or depressed when I wanted to be. That was the thing that can help me get out, but I didn't. I don't think too many people get in the predicament where they like to be distressed, but for that couple of weeks or a week, whatever it was, I felt I really messed up by becoming happy, but I couldn't help it. There's nothing I can do about it. But anyway, it's temporary. The appearance of temporary happiness. There is a permanent happiness, but that's not material. This is material happiness and distress. We can be permanently happy by just being Krishna conscious all the time. You can always be happy, no matter what your material external position is. You might be in the most miserable position externally, but you're still happy. It doesn't matter, because you're thinking of Krishna, you're with Krishna. So they're speaking in here simply of material happiness and distresses, which what most of us do experience in this life. Everyone, is there anyone here who's never been distressed? Who's never been unhappy, never been sad? Okay, is anyone here always happy? You know, the ignorance is bliss. If you're completely in ignorance, you're happy. But if you're anywhere in the middle, if you're a complete Bhagavat, you're also pure devotee, you're also always happy. But everyone else has got both, happiness and distress. So here it's saying we have to tolerate it. And we have to tolerate it by we continue doing our duty, we continue doing our service, no matter how, this external happiness and distress may be exhibited. It doesn't matter. We still do it. Even if we don't do it in the best consciousness, we still do it. Better you do it than you don't do it. Just remember that eggplant. Okay, does anyone have any questions? I want to see, besides Murli Bhattacharya, anyone else have any questions? Yes.
Thank you. If I'm unhappy at a job, should I be staying there and working there, or should I move on to a different job?
Okay, if you're unhappy at a job, should you stay at the job, or should you get a different job? My personal advice, if it's really a bad job, try to get another job. It doesn't matter. That's not your duty. Your duty isn't my job. That's my duty. Your duty is to have a job, but it doesn't matter where you're working. You better try to don't stay in a miserable situation if you don't have to. But if your duty even in the temple, if you're doing something you're really unhappy to do, you should go to your authority and ask them, is there any way I could change my service for whatever reason? And if they say, well, right now we don't have anybody, you have to do it, then you accept it and you do it. But for a job, if you can get a better job or a different job, better you do something else. Even if you're getting a little less pay, better you do that. I mean, that's just practical. Any more job questions? Because we have jobs for people here too. I'm sure there's plenty of jobs here. But that just to be practical. I don't think most people don't like their jobs. Okay, let me see. How many people like their job? And even if they weren't getting paid, would go to work? Okay, how many people will do devotional service without getting paid? Because it's fun. I know I do things at the temple. I fix things and do some carpentry stuff. And if somebody wants me to do this at their home and pay me, there's no way I would do it. But for Krishna, I do it for nothing, and it's pleasurable. For Krishna, you work. You do anything for Krishna, but it's really rare. Even if you like your job, you don't like it that much, you're going to continue doing it without pay because it's really so much fun. It's nobody's jobs maybe not nobody's. It is fun. For my job, and I do magic shows, and it's fun, but I certainly wouldn't go to these people's houses and do a magic show for all these nice little kids. If I didn't get paid. But for Krishna, I do magic shows that I don't get paid, at temples or at our temple. So it's different. But for a practical job, get a better job, get something that's more tolerable. Otherwise it's going to interfere with your devotional service. You don't want that to happen. Any other questions? Yes?
What is Gita?
Huh?
What is Gita?
Gita?
Bhagavad Gita.
What is this book? Bhagavad Gita, a song of God. It was spoken to Arjuna. I don't know what you're asking. Is that what you're asking?
So what is the inner meaning of Gita?
The inner meaning, surrender to Krishna. That's it. Even in that, in the verse, just surrender unto me, and I'll protect you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Ramananda Roy was telling him about what's higher in devotional service. So then Ramananda Roy said, "This is higher," and Lord Chaitanya rejected that. That's what's higher than that. We think surrendering to Krishna. And he's protecting us from all sinful reactions. What's higher than that? It's like we can get to that. That would be wonderful. And then Bhakti Siddhanta was asked that question. Why does he accept that as material? Why is that not so advanced? He said, just like you have a son, and your son, you tell him, if you do this for me, I'll give you this. Then it's not so wonderful. If you have a son who does what you want without promising him something else in return, that's really wonderful. So Krishna has to say, and I'll protect you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So Krishna is saying, you do this for me, I'll protect you from sinful reactions. He shouldn't have to say, I'll protect you. I don't care if you protect me from sinful reactions. Still, I'm going to do it for you. So but the Bhagavad Gita is mainly talking about surrendering to Krishna, whatever way he can get you to surrender. But that's a higher principle. Yes.
So Prabhuji, you've been in Krishna consciousness for, 45 years? Something like that?
Since 71, whatever that is.
Almost 50 years. So I wanted to ask you, how have you maintained your level of enthusiasm and throughout all of that time and all of that peace to just stay at the top and let that enthusiasm keep driving you to do more?
Well, I never get influenced by happiness and distress. So you just keep going, even if, I mean, honestly, you don't go with the same enthusiasm. You slow down, but you still have to do certain things. You know, you have to go to work. Everybody works. If you just feel depressed, I'm not going to work today. How many people do that? You know, you still go to work depressed. You don't do it as good of a job, but you still do it. So I think the main thing in devotional service is you stick to it. You just don't stop doing it. Whether you're doing it happy or distressed, you're still doing it. That's the thing. I found in just staying at the temple, in America, I'm the longest temple president. Actually, throughout the whole world, except for one person in India, Yasomati Nandana. He's beating me. But done, and we started out. We just started this temple. We were getting about 6-7 people a week coming to the temple. It was real small, and we, you know, and just staying there. That's the only thing I did was I stayed. I don't think I did anything else that was any significant, but just staying. So if you have some service and you just stick with it, at least stick with it until Krishna gives you something else. If he doesn't give you something else, you just stick with that service. And then you'll be successful. It will be successful if you don't, because Krishna wants to spread this movement. Prabhupada wants to spread this movement. And that's why Krishna wants to do it, to fulfill Prabhupada's desire. So if we just keep trying and stick with what we're doing, in spite of happiness and distress, and it is a fact, you don't have as much enthusiasm when you're bummed out. You're not, but you still do it. Just still do it the best you can. And Krishna sees that. And then it becomes easier. So I think that's at least as far as my own personal experiences, you just stick with it. And you know, I have no choice. Like Bhakti Siddhanta said, I quit. But you can't quit. He just kept going. But he said that. So you may even feel that way. Certainly you're going to feel that way. Krishna's that's the test. You get tested. Krishna wants to see how sincere you are, how determined you are, how strong you are, how to make you stronger in Krishna consciousness. That's what makes you stronger. Tolerating these things, and you keep going. You have to be convinced that what you're doing for Krishna is what Krishna wants. Now you may have some doubts. Does Krishna want me to do this? If he gave you this, he wants you to do it. Well, I don't know if he still wants me to do it. He still wants you to do it unless he told you no. When we were new devotees in the temple, whatever our temple president told us, we felt and accepted that this is what Krishna wants me to do. And we did it. And you're protected by Krishna. When you're thinking like that, you're protected by Krishna. And you're doing what Krishna wants. Oh yeah, now I remember your question. Okay, yeah. So, I don't know if I answered it.
No, you did. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know how much time. Got 5 minutes? Yes.
I would like your opinion on how did you keep the devotional service going over phases of life, and especially with,
How to what?
how did you keep the devotional service going over phases of life, especially even with kids?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, kids are a problem. Well, how do you do devotional service? I can tell you, I did a lot more devotional service when we had kids than I'm probably doing now. It was like when you're younger, fortunately you don't have kids when you're older because it's so hard to get anything done. But somehow when you're younger you have a lot of energy and you can do a lot. I think one of the things I was told, and I know I also read this, I think it was in the Nectar of Devotion, that you should not take vows that you can't easily keep. In other words, there's certain things I can do, and I'm going to do that in spite of whether I have kids, whether my kids are driving me nuts or not. But I shouldn't take on more vows that I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Some people take on so much and then they don't do anything. Better like just chanting japa. I'm going to chant 1 round a day. Then after I'm chanting, and you can, a minimum 1. And then after I'm chanting every day at least 5, I can change it. Okay, from now on, my new vow is I'm chanting a minimum 4 rounds a day. And do what you can do. So there's going to be problems. Sometimes life goes up and down. So there's going to be good parts where you can do so much and parts you can't do so much. But your minimum that you have vowed to do, you should do that. And even like at the temple, if you do some service, you can say, I'll do this service as often as I can. I can't do it all the time. That's not as good as I'm going to do the service. I'll be here unless I'm really, really sick or something. But still, I want to help, or I'll help that person who's doing the service. So they're not really counting on you so much. And you got to take vows that you can do. You got to make promises you can keep. You don't try to do more than you could possibly do. Reasonably. You have to know yourself. You have to know what I can do. You have to be a little mature. You have to not be a fanatic. Just be a reasonable, sane person. This is what I can do, and that's all I can do. But I will do that, and I will do it all the time. So when you have kids, and then later, when your kids get older, then you can do more. Until they get much older, and then you're very old, and you can't do as much. Hare Krishna. Really, I'm afraid. But what's your question?
I have a lot of questions. I'll make one comment. Mother Lakshmi Moni, when she gave birth, she wrote Prabhupada. And she said, I'm doing Pujari service, but now I have a child. Which should I do? And Prabhupada said, both. So you got to try.
Another person, wasn't it, Jiva, who Prabhupada says to take care of? When we were new devotees, we were very fanatical. I mean, in general, we were really fanatics. We were, we really were, which helped at the time. And Krishna protected us because we were sincere fanatics. But one woman told Prabhupada, that Srila Prabhupada, she wants to know if she can, give up her child?
Because someone else take care of them.
What?
Have someone else take care of them, or she doesn't?
Someone else take care of the child, because I can't take care of the child because of the deity worship. And he's told her to know your duty is to take care of your child, and to find someone else for deity worship. So there's that too. So I mean, I don't think we have that problem so much with the Indian community. I think you know that. But in the beginning, honestly, we were really, really, really fanatical to a great extent. Yes?
Now I can ask my questions. Right? 2 questions about tolerance. Is it true that one reason why we have to tolerate happiness is because there's a tendency to get conditioned to the mode of goodness if we become too attached to happiness?
I don't know. But I know that in the mode of goodness, you're attached to happiness that you're enjoying much more than everyone else. They're just mode of ignorance is not enjoying, passion that's not enjoying, but I'm enjoying. So you become conditioned by the concept of happiness. So that may very well be true, but this is tolerated. tolerate is a little different. I mean, when you tolerate, basically tolerance means you do what you're supposed to do in spite of what's happening externally. You're tolerating. So that's more what I see it is. The tolerating is you do your duty, whether you're happy or not. And happiness certainly can interfere with your duty. I mean...
So this leads to the second question I had about tolerance. Tolerance doesn't mean you try to fight the emotions that you may be, just like in the Bhagavad Gita, after they deal with Ashvatthama and Arjuna makes his pronouncement, it's described in the Bhagavad Gita that all the Pandavas, they went to the river and performed the funeral services for all the children that Ashvatthama killed, but they were lamenting a lot. It says they were lamenting. So my question is, we may get these emotions, be it happiness or distress. It's not that we fight them, or should we, so tolerance doesn't mean fighting the emotions.
No, like first of all, even that, there's a time to lament, but they didn't lament forever. Then they eventually, they've gone on and do whatever else they have to do. But their tolerance, so I have some emotions. You can't repress your emotions. Krishna says, what will repression accomplish? It's going to come out, I was thinking of tolerance, and another thing, there's the qualities of knowledge that Krishna lists in the Bhagavad Gita 13th chapter. Wow. That's really neat. We got to get one of them. But in the 13th chapter, verses 8 through 12, there's lists the qualities of knowledge, and one of those qualities is tolerance. And one time, I had a friend who could not. Oh no, that was different. It was intolerance. It was forgiving. Sorry, but anyway, one of the qualities of knowledge is tolerance. So somehow you have to learn to tolerate. You just have to. You don't have a choice. Even when it becomes intolerable, still you should tolerate. Okay. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about surrendering to Krishna?
About what?
Surrendering.
Surrendering to Krishna. Surrendering to Krishna. Well, it's just... when I think of surrender, I think of like a war, and you hold up a white flag, and you give in to the other party. You win, I lose. So, but in that sense, we have to do that for Krishna. We're fighting Krishna. We're fighting against what Krishna wants us to do, because we want to enjoy. And finally, we come to the point where, okay, Krishna, I surrender. Prabhupada says, you can say, from this day on, I am yours. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do. Part of the problem is knowing what Krishna wants us to do. Once we know what Krishna wants us to do, it's like half the problem solved. Now all we have to do is do it. But surrendering to Krishna means whatever he wants and not what I want. That's surrender. Now, as I said, find out what he wants. And he'll reveal to you what he wants. And when we're sincere, he'll definitely let us know what he wants.
Prabhupada does quote the 6 principles of surrender.
I can't hear you.
I should speak louder?
Yes.
You're not such a good magician because you haven't made me disappear yet.
I'm tolerating you.
So you're a good comedian. Prabhupada quotes in in the Saradharma verse, he refers to the 6 principles of surrender that about accepting things that are favorable, rejecting things that are not favorable, accepting that Krishna is my protector, that Krishna is going to maintain me, and surrendering everything to Krishna. So he gives those 6 particular aspects that we can understand to try to integrate into our lives as surrender.
Oh, okay, that was very good. So accept what's favorable also for devotional service, reject what's unfavorable, always be meek and humble, always feel dependent on the mercy of the Lord, always feel protected by the Lord, and there's one more. No, I don't think it's surrendering everything. That's a different, what? No, I think I said that. When he's maintained by the Lord and protected by the Lord, always be meek and humble, accept what's favorable, reject what's unfavorable. I'm not sure. What?
Humility, you should feel very low.
Oh, humility. Well, that's certainly a good. Anyway, there's something else. Okay, that's all for our obeisances to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much.